attorney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to part 3 of our 5-part Medicaid Monday series. And we're going to bring you today some of the home care rules that are coming, some that are here, note some of the differences, and how we are today as we sit here preparing our clients for long-term care, and in particular, to be in that place that they all say they want to be, which is at home. And so there's a lot of volatility right now, as you may notice, in both federal and state politics. We have the COVID relief bill, $1.9 trillion, with some of that money funneling through to New York State. We have yet to see exactly how that's going to impact the New York State budget. We very closely follow the Home Care Association and its leader, Al Cardillo, and they actually have a legislative proposal to expand funding for home care rather than cut it. And we're looking at that 1.9 trillion, we're looking at New York State's budget and how that all shapes and impacts what we're going to talk about today, which is the current rules for Medicaid home care, the proposed changes to the rules that are still pending, and what does the future hold? And how should we be counseling individuals to plan for long-term care? And today's focus obviously is on Medicaid, and this is our firm. Those are the attorneys. We are, again, New York City, Albany, and these various locations. We'd love to work with you if you're looking for an elder law and estate planning firm. And today, we're going to talk about the steps that you can take right now if you have the need for Medicaid home care, or if you're a counselor. I know there are a lot of professionals in the audience. If you're guiding others on how to qualify for Medicaid home care, what are the new rules? When are they going to change? And then when those changes occur, what can we anticipate and what can we expect? This broader topic is going to be explored in great detail in our Elder Law Forum. Some of you may have joined us for the forum in years past. This is our 26th annual. It is once again virtual, and the dates are May 21st and June 4th. Those are 2 Friday mornings from 8:30 to 11:30. And we will, in fact, have Al Cardillo from the Home Care Association. We'll have the lobbyist from the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys in Washington talking about public policy at the federal level and how it all impacts you and the clients that you counsel. So with that, we look at long-term care as where do you want to live if you do need care. And longevity and medicine, keeping people alive longer, doesn't mean that they have a quality of life or an independence that makes them fully independent for the rest of their lives. So when they do need care, and that could be for a number of reasons, could happen at almost any age. So we work with people with disabilities at younger ages, right on through to people in their 90s and 100s who need care because of the aging process. Where do you want to live if you do have that need for care? If you do need care, who's going to provide it? And ultimately, who will pay for that care? And it doesn't get any more complicated than to say, when it comes to long-term care, Medicare does not play in this pond. It's not a payor for long-term care services. So we have to look at your own finances, and we have to look at private insurance policies, long-term care and life insurance hybrids, which we think are pretty nifty right now. Some of the life insurance policies, if you're at younger ages, that you can get. And then finally, Medicaid. And Frank, what the driver is for all of this is the cost of care, and the fact that most people cannot afford to pay for very long. And what are you seeing in terms of those costs?
$15,000 roughly per month for nursing home or home care if you're paying for an agency, if not more. We have plenty of clients that pay $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 or more to privately pay for in-home health care. So we're seeing costs continue to go up, and that's one of the reasons why we talk about Medicaid, because like you said, not many people can afford to pay long-term themselves.
So $180,000, we have clients paying $250,000 per year. How do you afford that? How do you plan for that? And again, or look for to qualify.
Correct. So we look at income and assets separately, because Medicaid does, so we do too. For quickly as the refresher, right? Because we do this on every webinar we do when we talk about Medicaid. So for one individual, for home care purposes, for income, you can have $904. If you have 2 people at home receiving services, that gets bumped to $1320 per month. And if you're one person, for resources or assets, it's $15,900. If you're a couple, then it goes up to $23,400. The other numbers on the screen deal with when you have one person in the nursing home and one person in the community. We'll touch on those next week when we talk more about chronic care.
So that's pretty quick. The bottom line for an individual, 15,900 of assets, $904 of income. Those are the Medicaid thresholds that you have to get down to in order to qualify for home care benefits. The nursing home number, we'll talk next week, hasn't changed in a long time. That's $50 per month. That is your income allowance if you're in a nursing home. So those rules are very different. Today is focused on home care. The spousal rules, a well spouse under certain programs can get up to $74,820 of total resources. And so you have to know how to navigate and look at the rules and look at the assets, what is exempt, what is not exempt. And the one asset that really is exempt in most cases is an IRA. So that's something that we do note and have to be aware of. And let's look at right now today, because we do a lot of home care applications in our office. We file them in a number of different counties all across New York State. And so filing for home care is an art form because it isn't as cut and dry as a nursing home application, because you have a nursing home bill, you have a nursing home, and you just need the Medicaid. Here it's who is going to be that care provider in the home. Are you going to use an agency? Are you going to go through the nursing home transition diversion waiver program? Are you going to use the managed long-term care program? Are you going to use the consumer directed personal assistance program? And you need to know each of these individual programs, the nuances, and how they work for your clients. So we work with social workers, care managers who have the ability to do an assessment and guide us into the proper lane so that we're applying for the right benefits for a particular home care application, but it's much more nuanced, Frank, than a nursing home application.
Correct. It's just one of those things where just knowing that you need help is only half the battle. You have to know what options you have and what scenario is best suited for each program, just like Lou was talking about. So we have plenty of people that they live in a very rural community. If you live rurally, chances are using health agencies are probably not going to be the best avenue to get that care in home, because there may not be any agencies where you live. So in that case, consumer directed works very well if you can then find the people to staff the case. Other people have dementia or cognitive issues. The NHTD program typically is a good fit for those. So just knowing the different avenues that you can take once you're applied and approved for Medicaid is very important.
So the non-financial side of a Medicaid home care application has a lot of subtlety, nuance, and a lot of things that are not easily navigable, nor can you predict what the outcome is going to be. We can tell a client that, oh, you're eligible for 16 hours a day of care based upon this assessment under the current Medicaid rules, but you can't find 1 hour, let alone 16 hours. That's kind of the elephant in the living room right now. You just don't have the people available. And that's why the Home Care Association is saying, we don't need less investment and cuts to Medicaid home care. We need more investment to pay real wages so that we can attract good people to do the things like provide home care services in a way and with quality providers that agencies can staff cases and consumer directed people can be found to provide services in those areas where agencies cannot. So the financial side of this, Frank, is a little bit more cut and dry, if you will, but it's still not. But it still has rules that we need to know.
Sure. So like the slide says in front of you that you're seeing on your screen now, if you want to apply, now is the time because existing rules still apply. So that means no look back, no penalties for home care applications. So we use different tools to get your assets down below that $15,900 figure. So that could include using a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, which was discussed last week. I took a week off from the webinar, so you can go back and watch Lou and Aaron on that one. You can also spend down on legitimate expenses like your home, if you need that new car, if you haven't prepaid for your burial arrangements, or if there's a community spouse, meaning someone that isn't applying for Medicaid. Most of the time, we just transfer everything to the well spouse. For income, we use something called the pooled trust. We're going to talk about that quite a bit today, off and on, as we go through the presentation. So we use an income trust or a pooled trust to handle your income above that $904. But using the tools we have available for your assets and the tools we have available for your income, We get you eligible for Medicaid. We apply now with no penalties.
And we've been talking to people about this for many, many, many years. We have a radio show on Saturday mornings called Life Happens. We do a lot of webinars, seminars when we could do them live, educating people on the fact that Medicaid home care is available to you right away. No 5-year look back. And that's what most people have ingrained in their minds. And I have to wait 5 years before I can get Medicaid. Nursing home Medicaid, yes, maybe. We'll talk next week. But home care, no. Right now, we can shift all of your assets. Today is March 15th. You come to see us today, we can have all of your assets protected by April 1st, apply on April 2nd, and start the Medicaid process, and you will be financially eligible at that time, effective April 1. It doesn't get any better than that or any easier than that. So for those people who are maybe in need of home care services, may qualify and have the threshold for long-term care needs under the Medicaid program, getting an application in before these new rules kick in is absolutely essential. And we're going to talk about the different things beyond just the look back and the penalty, but this new set of rules is going to put this in a very different realm. Let's walk through a very quick example of what we mean. We have Evelyn, who has income of $2,370 a month. She has a $75,000 IRA, savings and checking of $25,000, a home worth $250,000, and $100,000 in stock. And Frank, I know you know the answer to this question, but if Evelyn came in today, when can she be eligible for Medicaid?
So as long as we work quickly, it's April 1st, right? That's the goal. We want to get that done quickly. We want to get that done efficiently. And we want to get her set up long-term so we get the services as soon as possible.
And how is that possible?
So we create that Medicaid Asset Protection Trust that we talked about last week, and we put her home, her stock in about $11,000, if not a little more, at her cash to get her down below $15,900. We also create a pool trust. We assign her excess income. So again, that's her income above $904 every month. We assign that to the pool trust. Now she looks like she doesn't have anything anymore because we've given her things away to her trusts, and then we apply for Medicaid, and then we will get our approval through the local county Department of Social Services.
And
so when we apply, she shows assets of $15,900. Her income's down to $904. She's got that Medicaid trust to protect her assets. She's got the pool trust to accept her monthly income, so she doesn't have to spend that down to the government. And congratulations, now we're getting Medicaid in place with that no waiting period because we got our application in before the new rules take effect.
so what can the Medicaid pool trust pay for?
Anything for her. As long as it's for her, they could pay for it. So we see things like taxes, insurance, utilities, food, clothing. If Medicaid doesn't provide enough care hours, it can pay for additional care hours. The other thing that we like to use it for, honestly, is if there are children that are helping to manage the case, they can get paid for their services for helping mom out.
Typically, we do a contract for that called
Correct.
a caregiver agreement, where they're contracted and responsible for providing certain services to their parents, and the pool trust trustee can pay them a wage for doing that.
But the best thing about the pool trust is at the end of the day, it's all that excess income is still getting used for Evelyn's expenses. It's not going to Medicaid, because if Medicaid were to be asked what to do with the money, they would say you have to spend it down or give it to us. That's not the answer we give.
On the asset side, last week's program, we covered in depth the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, how it protects the home, the tax benefits of that trust, how children can manage it as trustees or other third parties, how there is a right to income back for the grantor so they can get the income out, it can filter through their pool trust. And if they need principal, they can't get at it directly, but the children can distribute principal to themselves. And once they distribute it to themselves, they're free to do with that principal whatever they choose. So I would commend you back to last week's program. It's on our website at pierolaw.com, and you can see exactly how that trust protects assets. The pool trust protects income. No waiting period. You're eligible for Medicaid financially right away. But Frank, that doesn't mean you're going to get care or services.
No, just like everything else, some things take some time, right? As good as we are, some things take some time. But there are avenues we can use if you do need help and you need it tomorrow. So one avenue we take with this kind of case is we apply for something called the Immediate Needs Program. which essentially is a way where we can fast track that application. In 2015, a new law took effect that outlined this program. And since that time, we've been using it as much as we can. Essentially, what we do is we coordinate getting some paperwork done by your local and treating doctor that says that you need the home care services and you need it now. And we submit that with your application. And by doing so, it fast tracks the application where it has to be approved within 7 to 12 days. So it all depends kind of on circumstance, but at least it gets a lot of the hurdles out of the way, where the local county will become the facilitator of that case for now. And eventually they will shove it off to the managed long-term care company or the NHTD program or wherever we're going to take that case down the road.
So this has been a godsend for some people. You're waiting hospital discharge. You need to get a home care plan in place quickly. The typical MLTC timeframe, which is just, what it is. We deal with it. It is what it is, as they say. 4 to 5 months before you get services in the home. Well, if you're discharging from a hospital, you can't wait 4 to 5 months. So the immediate needs puts it in the county's hands. They've done a great job getting these turned around, getting the services approved. You still have the quandary of who is going to be the care provider. And this is really an upstate, downstate dichotomy. We practice in the 5 boroughs of New York City. We practice in Nassau and Suffolk, Westchester. In those areas, there are supplies of caregivers. Agencies have no trouble hiring caregivers. But when you get north, even into our capital district, up the Hudson Valley, to the North Country and out west, finding caregivers is the next big hurdle. So where you are depends upon how available that care is going to be. But we now have to turn for our last 10 minutes to the new rules. So the first question is, when does this apply? And that's been a moving target. So we had the rules passed last April as part of the governor's budget, and they were supposed to all go into effect October 1st, but you may have heard there's something called the COVID pandemic. And COVID has pushed these rules back, but they implemented one part of it. So on October 1, the rule came into play that any transfers on or after October 1st will be subject to a look-back period someday. That piece is in play, so anything transferred today will be subject to a look-back period. Anything transferred in the future will be subject to a look-back period of 30 months total, dating back to October 1st. But they're not implementing the rule, and they went from October 1 to January 1 to April 1. The last official word we got was July 1 for the implementation of the new rules, but we have heard through the elder law section of the State Bar that Department of Health is now saying that it's likely to get pushed back further due to COVID. So we can't give you a hard and fast date. We are still using July 1 and encouraging clients who are contemplating a home care application to apply by July 1. The financial rules we'll get to in a moment, but some of the biggest changes that are coming, and this is very frightening for people that do this, because you know that you build your case using the treating physician and getting good statements, something that used to be called the M11Q, which is a doctor's statement, an affidavit as to the need for care. And if the doctor documents that properly and says the person needs 24/7 care, you then have a powerful tool to go to the Department of Social Services or HRA with and say, we're going to advocate for this and we're going to get 24/7 care. And you almost always do if you have your case documented properly. Not always, but most times. So now we're going to have an independent physician on a panel of physicians assembled by New York State. They haven't told us who or how, but this is going to go from the treating physician, who will have no more say in the case, to the person who is now designated by the state as the independent physician. Now, hospital care used to be your primary care physician followed you through the hospitalization and actually kept treating you. Now you have a hospitalist and you have an intensivist. So now we're going to independent physicians in the managed long-term care who are going to use a new independent assessment tool that's going to be developed by the state and an independent assessor that's going to be chosen by the state. So they're changing the entire mechanism for qualification and for the eligibility determination. And this is going to be a major, major change for us. We think it's going to spawn a lot of litigation. So we are preparing for that. And our last segment in the series here for Medicaid Mondays is fair hearings, appeals, and advocacy. So they're also changing the standard of activities of daily living, the measure of physical and care and types of care that you need from 2 ADLs to 3. And if you have cognitive impairment, they're taking away some of the housekeeping services that you're now eligible for with just 1 ADL. So what's the goal here? New York wants to limit the number of people who qualify, make them be much more chronically ill, and change the process so that they don't have the same appeal rights that they have now if they get denied care. If you're getting in under the new rules, this is going to be the world. If you want to get in and have the same playing field that we've had for the last several years, then you need to have your application in by July 1st or whatever the rolling date is that finally the implementation takes place. Other concerns in this new legislation, they put in a safety monitoring. And if you go back long enough, I've been practicing 36 years, they used to have safety requirements in the regulations. And what that resulted in was people being denied care because they were determined not to be safe. So they're putting a cap here at 12 hours per day. If you're over 12 hours, you get another type of assessment for safety at home. This is dangerous, may not be bad, it may be innocuous, but we're fearful that they're going to try to impose regulations on people to prevent high users, 24/7 users, which are the most expensive, from getting that home care. What does that lead to? Premature institutionalization. So that's our fear in this area. We'll monitor it as the rules roll out. But Frank, we also have these rules and how they affect current cases with regard to that 30-month look back.
Correct. So anything that was done prior to the new law taking effect, no change. Everything's still the same. Anything you do from now until the new rules take effect, so July 1, as Lou's been saying, is our next target date. Still no real effect. They'll be processed under the existing rules. On or after July 1st, or whenever that implementation date comes around, that's when these new rules will start, monkeying up the works on people. So that's why, for now, July 1, new target date. Could be later, could be much later. We don't know. That's what we're aiming for.
Hopefully by the Elder Law Forum, we'll have more guidance from New York State Department of Health on that. But this is how it rolls out. So if you apply today or up until June of 2021, there is no look back. So the look back period for home health care is 0. Nursing home care, 60 months. That's next week's program. 9 months if you get to July, because they're going to look all the way back to October 1st. Any transfers on or after October 1 would be included. 10 months if you go to August, because it's looking back to October 1, and that rolls forward until you get a full 30-month look back period for home care. We still have exempt transfers. We're going to cover these in much more depth next week. You can transfer unlimited assets to a spouse. You can transfer unlimited assets to a disabled or blind child, or trust exclusively for that disabled or blind child. And these are major exceptions. So if you have these to work with, the look back and penalty rules don't apply either nursing home or home care. Again, we'll spend more time on this next week. But when we look at the home care, the income allowance of $904, that, Frank, may be changed based upon how they interpret these new rules.
Correct, because whenever we have a look back period, they're always worried about transfers. It's you giving things away. And if you give things away and they find out about it, they will assess a penalty against you based on how much you've given away. Well, essentially, when you create a pool trust and you give money to it, you're giving it away. From the best we've been able to make sense of everything so far is, as long as you fund your pool trust with your excess income and then you use it in that same month, they won't be able to assess a penalty.
We're not sure if they're going to impose a same month rule,
right? We're not sure,
or what period of time, but it has to go in and it has to come out and it has to be used exclusively for the Medicaid applicant.
Right. So as long as essentially you don't give it away and just never use it, they shouldn't be able to assess a penalty. We'll just have to figure out how often they're looking to see what you've done. But that's still up for interpretation because we haven't been given any formal guidance on exactly how this is going to get handled. But for now, as far as we know, the pool trust remains good. We just have to see how it's going to be monitored by the county on an ongoing basis.
If you think about it, the pool trust has never worked for nursing home Medicaid because of that transfer rule that Frank just alluded to. The pool trust is only a creature of home care, and only because you can transfer assets for home care without penalty. So now that we have lookbacks and penalties, we will, for Medicaid home care, the impact on that pool trust contribution was uncertain. But if you think about it, who can live on $904 a month? So this would effectively force people into the nursing home because they just wouldn't be able to afford care at home. People need that extra income in order to pay their extra living expenses. So we'll be following this again very closely. We have experts on pool trust at our Elder Law Forum from the NYSARC Pool Trust who will be talking about the new rules and how they may impact. So again, May 21st and June 4th, we hope you can join us for that. Frank, we're anticipating delays. We have delays now, and depends on where you apply. HRA in New York City, Long Island, upstate, the counties have different pace at which they process these applications. The application itself is supposed to be done in 45 days by the county. That's the financial piece. They have 90 days if there's a disability determination, which you need if you're using a pooled trust.
Correct.
But that's not the end of the process.
No, that's only kind of the start. That's the first hurdle. The other thing that I think I'll mention just here quickly would be we are seeing applications processed quickly during COVID because the counties are allowing people to attest to things a lot more than they used to. So you don't necessarily have to prove by documentation what's happened nearly as much as you normally would. Once the pandemic's over, that's likely going to go away. The other thing is with the new look back for home care, you're adding to caseworkers' workload because now instead of letting them have a month or two of statements, you're going to audit all the way up to potentially 30 months once this is in full implementation. So how could it get shorter when you're giving people more work once all of these new rules are here and they're here to stay?
Not to mention the independent physician assessment, the independent assessor, all of the new things that are coming in.
Correct.
So the tools that we will have available to us to navigate the home care rules are going to look a lot like the nursing home application rules.
Correct.
And so we have something called a gift and note strategy where you give money away and you loan money. We're going to go into great detail on that next week. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it today. You could gift 100% of the excess resources, and then there's a gift back rule where you can actually give money back and use it to pay expenses, and that reduces the penalty. For people who have more significant wealth, they could private pay for 30 months, make that Medicaid trust transfer now, wait to 30 months, private pay for 30 months, and that's another strategy. We'll again talk about all of those in context of the penalty rules for nursing home care. And then finally, spousal refusal has been proposed to be eliminated in the governor's budget 26 times in a row. It's lost. They're over 26. So you can still, as a community spouse or well spouse, have excess resources and refuse to turn them over. We're seeing more activity in the collection process by counties who are looking now to recoup income and assets from refusing spouses. We had a spate of that several years ago. It died down. It started to ramp up again. So again, more litigation, more fair hearings, family court potentially. Those are the results of spousal refusal. So we have to be prepared and counsel our clients properly on what those risks are and how to plan for them. So Frank, when should you start planning?
Yesterday.
Okay.
How about today?
Today's good enough.
So you have to kind of know the options. That's why we like to do these webinars. We like to get the education out. We like to get the options out there. So if you think privately paying is something that you're interested in or that you have the financial ability to do, that's still on the table. You can always pay for things privately. If you think insurance might be an avenue that you want to look at, yesterday would be a nice day to do that, because as the older you get or your loved one gets, the less likely they're going to be insurable for that kind of thing. And if they are, the premiums are going to go up. So certainly talk with a financial professional about insurance if you want to look into insuring the risk. If neither of those are avenues that you think are right for you, then it's time to start planning, doing your trust planning, doing your gifting, however it is that we want to make you eligible. Now's the time before the new rules get even worse than they already are now.
And this is kind of our twilight zone time period. So if you think there's a chance that an individual can qualify for Medicaid home care, then it behooves you to really kick the tires on an application, look at an assessment, get a qualified assessment of whether they will meet the challenges medically. If they meet the challenges medically and they are eligible for long-term care services under Medicaid, then we can create financial eligibility, as we said, in a matter of a few weeks. So how do you do that? You want to work with qualified professionals. We're fortunate to have Ever Home Care advisors that we use for our clients. Nora Barato and Susan Bale do a tremendous job doing assessments and advising us on what not only the threshold question of whether they're eligible, but what the proper program is within that Medicaid spectrum of services. And we want to make sure that there are caregivers available with the program that we choose in a particular area. And this changes literally zip code by zip code as to what level of care is available, what agencies are available, what types of care you can get in the home, and what program you need to target through the Medicaid home care program in order to get services turned on. So always try to, whether it's us or wherever you are, I see there's a lot of people from across New York State, find a qualified elder law firm who is versed in the home care program, who knows the nuances. And we think a qualified care manager is part of that team as well. And if you're planning ahead of time, if you're ahead of the game, the insurance programs, long-term care insurance, life insurance with riders and hybrid policies, you absolutely need to look at those now. That's mainly though for people in their 40s, 50s, 60s. So in those age groups, be looking at buying insurance, getting private coverage, because the budgets are not going to get easier. They're going to get harder as more of the baby boom generation ages out and begins to become consumers of long-term care.